Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We are live on March 28th, and the session is being recorded. I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick little intro while Lynn is asking some questions. Please feel free to answer her questions in the chat box. My name is Alyssa Atkins, and I am the Training and Development Coordinator for the Native Learning Center. Just a quick disclaimer, this webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. Before we get started, I want to familiarize you with some of the features available and how the environment works. If you look at the top of your screen, you will see an icon of either a person with their hand raised or just a hand. With that icon, you can either raise hand, agree, disagree, or step away. Now your screen should look similar to this graphic here. To the bottom left, you will see a box that says Files. Here you will find today's presentation. Please feel free to download a copy for yourself. Simply click the item you would like to download, then click the arrow pointing downwards, and you will be prompted to save or print the materials based on your device's permissions. Sorry about that. The second box that states web links to houses today's surveys, as well as any other links that are found throughout the presentation. Lastly, to the right of the screen, we have a chat box available. This is how you will communicate to the instructor and NLC staff. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to interact by using the chat box. Simply type your message and hit enter or click that up arrow icon button to submit. We encourage class participation, so please feel free to write in those questions or comments. Tech support issues should also be submitted here. It is with a great pleasure that I introduce Lynn Wilson from IDRS. Lynn, would you like to take it away?
Sure. So, CO everyone, Lynn Wilson Dawado. My name is Lynn Wilson. I am coming to you from Oklahoma, from the Cherokee Nation, and I'm just glad to have everyone here in class. So as Awista said, this is a guide to website development. Something I just want to make clear, actually, let me back up a second, introduce a little bit more about myself. I'm sorry I sent the slides to Awista without having my introduction slide in there, and it's thrown me off. But I work for the Indian Dispute Resolution Services under their ACORN project, which is a small business development assistance program. So if anyone, within Indian country is looking to start a small business and needs assistance, we are here to help you, and we provide our services free of charge. And here in a minute, when everyone gets through introducing themselves, I'll try to ask Mark Thompson, who is the executive director of our organization, to type in our email addresses and the link to our website. And we'll make sure and provide that at the end, and just in case he forgets. Oh, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. So now I want to talk a little bit about the class structure. So this is a 4-part class, and each part really builds upon each other. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that. I mean, you can come to individual sessions, like if today is the only session that you can make, that would be fine. You're going to learn some valuable information today, but you may find that you get lost if you skip a day of class and then try to come back. It's going to be probably a little bit difficult for you. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that this is a 4-part class that's going to run basically the rest of the week. And I think Awista, there is one day where the class starts actually at a different time. It starts in the morning. But I do believe, and Awista, you may need to come back on and explain to people, are they registered with just this one link, or will they need to register for each session individually?
So all our webinars start at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard. And I do have all the registration links and the web links, and I will be more than happy to put them in the chat box right now. And once again, at the end, you do have to register for each day. So I do have part 2, 3, and 4 in the web link.
Okay. Alyssa, I really thought that, okay, maybe it's something else I'm thinking about. Okay, because I thought one day we were having to start at a different time, but maybe that's another session that we're doing.
Len, I think you were thinking that Thursday was going to be at an earlier time, and I checked in, and they have the time as the same time. That's what went out.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, sorry for any confusion then. Well, that makes it easy for everyone, so that way we all know we have to be here at the same time each day. Okay. Yeah. Give me just a second here to get my other stuff open back to where I'm at. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Something else I wanted to let everyone know is that, there's some of the parts of this class that's going to be a little bit technical, and basically what I'll be doing during the presentation is showing you how to do certain things. And I understand that can often be difficult, for someone if they're like, oh, I'm sitting here in this class and we're learning how to do this, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this on my own. Well, you don't have to worry, because I have made separate video recordings of all of the technical stuff that we're going to do in this class. So those will be great resources for you to refer back to as we progress through the class, and those, of course, will be available to you indefinitely after the class is over, because I've provided those on the IDRS YouTube channel. And with that, I just want to say that I want this class to be kind of relaxed, and I know that people will probably have a lot of questions as we progress. So at any time, if you have a question, I would encourage you to type it into the chat box there. And Mark is going to keep an eye on the chat, so he'll interrupt me and let me know when there's a question. And I know we kind of get going a little bit fast, but I don't want you to feel like you have to wait till the end, because we're not going to have like a designated question and answer part at the end. So if you have a question, I want you to go ahead and ask your question right there then, so we can try to address it. Okay, well, with that, I want to go ahead and get started. So one of the things I want to start talking about is, the importance of having a website, especially in today's age where most of us are, we're definitely using social media, and social media has become a little bit of a, I guess, a substitute, a stand-in for websites. And I want to talk with you and just share some information about, what the difference is between the two, and why everyone, I think if you're a small business, everyone needs to have a website regardless. And so the first reason is because of credibility. And to a small business, trust and credibility are really important, because it's really easy to create a Facebook page for your business. And, so that's why a lot of people do that. But this also means that it's a real low barrier to entry, and that it's really easy for scammers to create fake business pages. Whereas a website, yes, somebody could create a fake website, but it's just a step further in credibility, because, in order to create a website, you have to purchase a domain. You have to really put thought into the content that accurately describes the business. And this added depth is something that a lot of scammers simply aren't going to put effort into. It's much easier for them to create fake social media pages. Value is another reason why you should consider having a website for your business, because it's really fun and rewarding to own that business, but there may come a time when you want to sell the business or transfer it to somebody else. And part of what people are looking for if they're wanting to purchase an existing business is to purchase a business that already has brand assets. So if your business doesn't have an established website with traffic and leads, a blog, inbound links, and all of that, then your business will be less valuable. So those are some other reasons why having a website with your business is good, depending on what kind of business you have. Control is a really big thing. So, I always like to ask this question: have you ever changed the paint color of your house? Well, I certainly have. And it's easy to do when you own the house. You can make any improvements that you want to because you own that home. But on the other hand, if you're renting, it can either be difficult or absolutely prohibited, to make any kind of changes such as paint color or remodeling. And the same principle really applies to the web. So when you have a presence on a social media campaign, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, what you're essentially doing is you're renting space from that platform, and they have all of the control. You can't change the appearance of what your social media platform looks like. So if you want it to reflect your brand, your colors, and images, it's going to be, difficult or absolutely impossible to do whenever you're doing social media. So branding is an important component that we need to think about. And that's why websites are great, because we have total control over how those look. You're also really limited in the types of marketing tactics that you can use whenever you use social media platforms. And I know this is a big one. Like if you're using Facebook for your business and you want to have a contest, you have to follow Facebook rules. And I know in the past, I remember seeing a lot of contests and they worked well. Like a business might create a post that says, like and share this image with your friend or this post with your friends, and you'll be entered in a chance to win whatever. And that's actually, it's been illegal to do in Facebook for quite a while now. So if you do any kind of post like that, a contest where you're asking people to share your post with their friends, Facebook is going to get mad at you and put you in Facebook jail. So, that's just another one of those things that you just really, when you're using social media for your business, there's just a lot of limiting factors that you have to consider. But a website, on the other hand, again, you're just in total control of your marketing. So, a website really acts like the hub of the wheel. That's how I always like to explain it. And so that's why I use this visual here, because whenever you have a small business and you're developing your marketing, your strategy really should have several spokes, and all of those spokes should connect back to one hub in the center, and that is your website. So the website is really the hub of all of your online marketing, and it serves as that one place where you want to make sure that you're driving customers to for information and business transactions. Social media, does serve a really good purpose. So it's a really good tool to have in our business because it helps us connect with customers, that we may otherwise not be able to connect with. And most importantly, the sole purpose of social media is to help us build relationships with people. But, the thing about, like, if you rely on, say a Facebook page as the only thing that you're doing for your business, you're really not able to provide a really good holistic view of all the products and services you offer. And this is why you want to be able to direct traffic to somewhere where, like your website, where you can have all of the information that people need. They can see everything that you create, everything that you offer. So that's another benefit to having a website. Analytics is also very important. And, the social media platforms we use today, I refer to Facebook a lot because that's been my main social media platform, as I think it is for a lot of people. But, a lot of these social media platforms, they do provide some data about who's visiting your page, but that data is really very limited. But in contrast, whenever you have a website, you're able to connect it to things like Google Analytics, for instance. And if you use Google Analytics with your website, it can really provide a whole lot of information and insight to you. For instance, like how many people visited your site during a certain period? What keywords did they use to find your site? Where are those people located? How did they get to your site? So, if you do use something like a Facebook page and you had put a link in your Facebook page, Google Analytics will let you know that, hey, this person got to your website because they used this link that you had posted on Facebook. It can tell you how long they were on your site, show you the different pages that they browsed, how long they were on each page. So really, overall, analytics is really going to help you as a business owner to use the data to provide you with that data that you really need to improve your marketing and ultimately grow your business. Communication is also an important difference. Now, of course, communication is at the heart of social media, but the problem is how you communicate is going to be, again, dictated by that social media platform that you're using. So what if you want to send, your Twitter followers an email? Well, you can't do that in Twitter. But if you have a website, then through your website, you can collect information from visitors, such as their email addresses. So that way, if at some point you want to do like an email campaign or reach out to them that way, you have the ability to do that. A website also provides very consistent communication. So, because, whenever we're communicating on social media, we really don't give a whole lot of thought to how we sound or how followers might react to a post. Social media is kind of one of those where we just tend to start talking by typing. And sometimes, I know I'm guilty of it, that I don't always think really about maybe the message that I'm sending or how that message might sound to someone. So you keep that in mind. When you create a website, you are giving a lot more thought to the message that your business is delivering to the customer, because you're not getting on your website and just sporadically, communicating with people that way. So whatever you have on your website is probably text that you've really sat down and thought about, that you've proofread to make sure everything is spelled correctly. So that's another difference, the communication that you're having with people. And on a website, another thing that you can do is have like a page for frequently asked questions. So this is something that's always nice to have. If you have a product or you offer a service, and there may be questions that people commonly have all the time about it. If you're just using social media, then you might find yourself like having to regurgitate and explain, things to people over and over and over again. But if you have a place on your website where you can go ahead and have the answers to those frequently asked questions, that's always a help to people. And I do want to discuss the importance of keeping your social media business pages separate from your personal pages. And I always say this because I'm always surprised by the number of business owners that, yes, they may have their business page separate from their personal page, but what they don't know is that there's really nosy people like me, and I will go and scan your personal pages. If I'm going to hire someone and do business with them, like for instance, whenever I was looking for a contractor to build a greenhouse for our Cherokee Community Center, I had a contractor reach out to me, and I saw his Facebook business page, and it was very nice. But then I dug a little deeper, and I went and found his personal page, which he did not have set as private. And apparently all his posts were public. And, I really didn't like some of his political views and the things that he talked about. It was a real turnoff to me. And I don't think that he ever really gave thought to it, that, oh goodness, potential customers, well, as long as I give them my Facebook business page, they won't see this other stuff. But people, like me that are nosy will go out there and look at that information. So it's just something to keep in mind. Even if you do keep your business page separate from your personal page, just know that there's still the potential that your potential customers going to go to your page and look and see what's going on with you. So if you are one of those people that are very vocal about politics and religion and all the other social issues that we have going on, in our society today, you just make sure that you're going to your private page and like setting those as, that message as posts that only maybe friends can see. Just make sure that things like that are not open to the public for the whole world to look at. And I just added this seventh difference between website and social media this morning, because last night I encountered an issue where my Facebook account was hacked, severely hacked, as in it's gone poof, no longer in existence. And there's a hack going on. It's called the Lily Collins hack. And it's really affected hundreds of people all over the world. Most of them that it has affected are business owners, people who have Facebook business pages and are having use the accounts page, to I'm getting tongue tied here, Mark. You may have to jump in. Where we go in and do our events and different advertising. But anyway, so security is something that you do really need to think about with social media, because as I was doing my research about this hack, I'm reading all this information about these business owners that, oh my gosh, their business page has been taken from them. It's gone. And so now they don't have that channel of communication with their customers. So that's the thing I like about websites, is because I think websites tend to be more secure. I'll say that anything that you do online nowadays, there's always the potential for hackers and different things to happen. But social media, I believe, is very much at the top of that. So you just want to make sure that you're keeping that in mind. And I can't see, Mark, any of what's being typed in or anything. So
yeah, well, yeah. So nobody's made any comments, but one thing I would just add to what you were saying about that, because I know that you're not down on social media. It's not like don't do social media, do a website. It's do more than one. Kind of have a mix of things, because it's very important if you build your whole business, especially on another platform. The platform can take that away from you, and there may not be anything you can do to rebuild it. And if you're running a business off of it, it could cause a whole bunch of damage, right? Your sales can go from some great amount to down to zero, and just because there's a appeal process or whatever, just doesn't mean that it's going to come back, right? So it's always good to have multiple channels and never be reliant on one. But the nice thing about a website is yours. And if Facebook says, hey, we're closing tomorrow, they don't, they can't take your website away, right? If your host says they're closing, you just migrate your website to another platform. So
right, yeah. So it's just that old saying, don't have all your eggs in one basket. Make sure, especially if you have a business, that you always are going to have a way to communicate with your customers, because you never know what is going to happen. And I see that Marlene has, I don't know that it's necessarily a question, but she is making a statement, that she has a website, but she has no control over it, and they have to pay every time they want something added. So Marlene, what I really suggested, and I have seen this happen to a lot of small business owners, you'll go out and hire someone to build a website for you, and that website developer ends up having control of your website. And they do. They kind of hold you hostage there. And if you want to make any changes to it, they charge you. And so I would definitely say this to everyone: if you have a website that you do not have control of, you need a new website. You got to have control of your website. You don't want someone else having control of that. It's okay to hire a website developer to help you create the website if needed, or if you need to hire one to kind of help you do some things on your website, but ultimately you want to have control of that. And Mark, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, the only thing I would just say is I know that a lot of folks, if they're going to build a website for their business, and this is a good thing in business, right? You don't want to know how to do everything, or it would be nice to know how to do everything, but right, there's only so many times a day. You're a specialist. Let's say you're an artist and you're selling online. Your specialty is making making whatever your artwork is, right? You don't want to necessarily become an expert on building websites. And that's why what Lynn's about to teach you is really nice, because it's very simple. But a lot of times, we're told in business, go hire that specialist. But even though we're not a specialist in web technology, I think it's very important that we always have control of the passwords. If they are registering a domain name, and Lynn's going to talk about a domain name, how to choose one in just a bit. Make sure that the domain is registered in your account, all those things, so that if something happens, right, it's just all going back to that security, that it's you. And that's one of the things, right? Like, let's say you have no control over the website, right? Because that website is maybe even owned by your web developer. That's a bad situation, because if it's owned by you, you may be able to call another web developer. This person charges me every time I want to, add a photo. Can you train me so I don't have to pay every time, right? And you would have that option. So we don't know the whole situation. Obviously, can't totally get into it, but I think that's also important as well. Making sure that you are willing to at least spend enough time to make sure the website's in your name, that you know all the passwords, and that maybe even you only give the developer, editor access, and we can go into all that stuff. That gets very technical, but I think that's the baseline. Make sure that you have control in the end. So.
Yeah. So Marlene, it may be that, perhaps you go to your website developer and just see what you could work out with them, so that you can get your domain name and all of that kind of stuff, into an account where you own it and you control it. Okay. So I just want to, I never know what level of people that I have, in a class. It's always going to vary. So, some information I provide, some of you might be thinking, oh, well, that's, just common knowledge, but just in case, I do want to explain, and I have Mark on here because Mark is very technically savvy. Like, he is so smart when it comes to this stuff. But I want to explain that just a few different components that there is whenever you have a website. And so one of those components is a web host. And I use this graphic because this is how I just kind of think about it in my head, that I consider a web host like a piece of land. The web host is giving you a place to build your store or build your home. But that's not necessarily the website. Okay. That's just your web host. So a lot of times, especially, and we'll talk about these type of platforms here in a minute, a lot of the platforms that we're used to hearing about, right? Like Squarespace, Weebly, Wix, those types of things. Those companies act a lot of times not only as your web host, but they also give you the tools that you need to create the website. But there are some instances where people may have a website created, but then they have to go and have a separate web host. And I've been in those situations before. It's confusing to me. I didn't like having my website in one place and then my web host in another. But that you could do it separately or you can do it all together. And then that third component is your website URL, your URL domain. And again, if you're using some of these platforms like Wix and Weebly and Squarespace, a lot of times those companies are going to provide all of that to you together in one package. And that can be a plus or it can be a con. The thing I will say about like the website domain. So for my current website, I purchased my domain somewhere else. I did not purchase my domain with the company, the platform that I'm using. Yes, they're my web host and they're giving me the tools to build my website, but I did not get my website domain through them. And the only reason I did that is because I did that once and found it a little harder when I wanted to change website platforms. Then I had to get the domain moved. So that's kind of just really, it's up to you. But I will say it is very easy. Like if you're going with a certain website platform like Wix or something, and you're never going to move to another website platform again, and you want to go ahead and buy your domain directly from them, that you can certainly do that. So there's pros and cons. You just have to really kind of figure out, what might be best for you. And again, Mark, I'll just throw it out there in case you have anything that you want to add to that.
The only thing I'd say is that I love this graphic when I first saw it in the presentation. I think this is excellent. I was just going to say that road, that's kind of like the driveway, and that driveway is to the World Wide Web, right? You have all these different web hosts that are providing access, and they're providing that land for you. And that driveway is that World Wide Web, and it runs through all these different sites and how you get it. So when you think about, like, I know a lot of times we think, oh, it's this technical, it's coming out of this box, but that's really a lot how things work, right? The web host is basically just a server, just a computer. I'm using even too technical, right? It's just a computer that is connected to the internet, and they give an address, which is a little bit more. It's a different address than what your browser gets, an IP address that can get to your land, so to speak. And then on that land, you can build all kinds of stuff. Lynn's built a website here, right? The house, but she could have built like a wiki, which is a different type of thing. There's all kinds of different things that you can build. And so I think it's a great illustration. So that'd be my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about some of those WYSIWYG platforms. So in case you don't know, although I assume that everyone's probably heard that term WYSIWYG, what it stands for is what you see is what you get. And so these platforms like Google Sites, and Google Sites is really what I'm going to be showing you in this class. Although I will say that, even if you don't want to use Google Sites, again, what you're learning in this class can really be applicable to other platforms as well. So, you may not want to use Google Sites, but that's the site that I'm going to use. Like when I'm showing you different things, it's going to be Google Sites, and Google Sites is a WYSIWYG platform. And so what these WYSIWYG platforms do is it's great because, a long time ago, whenever you wanted to create a website, you had to know HTML code. Like you had to, and I took a class in college, nearly 30 years ago to learn how to do HTML coding. And it was terrible. And so, a long time ago, if you were a website developer and you know how to do code, you could really create a good business in that, because not everyone is able to do that. But what these WYSIWYG platforms do is they take out that necessity for you to know how to write HTML code. And so as you can see here, like if you open one of these platforms like Weebly or Google Sites, you're going to see like a box, and it's going to allow you to type into it. So it's almost like typing into a Word doc. And it just makes it extremely easy. There is, some limitations in what you can do in a WYSIWYG platform. Sometimes you may be like, well, I really want this box right here in this one certain spot, and it just won't allow you to do that. But there are so many different templates that you can choose from, that if you want to go out and do something, especially on your own, anybody can use one of these platforms. They're, for the most part, extremely easy. Some of them are a little bit more advanced than the others. So actually, I think I remember when I did this slide, I kind of did it in a way that was like, okay, well, Google Sites is like probably the easiest WYSIWYG platform that exists. Like, it's just super easy. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles that comes with Google Sites, and that's one reason why it's so easy to use. And then it kind of just goes up in the ladder from there. And for me, as far as the platforms that I've worked in, Squarespace was by far, to me, the most difficult out of all of them. My personal preference has always been Weebly. Again, not a whole lot of bells and whistles, but just very extremely easy to use. And Weebly is now actually owned by Square. So let me see what else I want to say over this slide. Oh, Mark, this is where I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about WordPress, because I know someone's going to mention WordPress, and I can't use WordPress. I do use WordPress because we use it for our nativebiz.org website. It was built in WordPress, and WordPress, I understand, like, it has some powerful stuff. Like, I know how to get in there and do some things. I know how to get in there and edit. If we need to add an event, I can do that. If I need to create a new page, I can do that. But I would never have the ability, very easily anyway, to create a WordPress site. So Mark, I'll let you talk about WordPress and who it might be a good fit for.
Yeah, I think there's two different people that WordPress might be applicable for. So let's just quickly talk about like what is WordPress. So WordPress is what they call a content management system, or a CMS, and it's very similar in the description that Lynn gave in the previous slide about how your web host was your land, and we mentioned that we can put lots of different things on our land. And Lynn mentioned a website, right? And that house was our website. Well, the WordPress is a different type of software package. It's not necessarily just written in HTML, although these other platforms are no longer written just in HTML. And HTML just stands for Hypertext Markup Language. All it is a programming language that allowed you to display a website, right? And now things have gotten much more complex. There's all kinds of these different languages, JavaScript, PHP, all this stuff, right? And you don't need to necessarily understand that, because they have built these software packages that allow you to kind of, just click, hit buttons, or drag and drop things, like in the case of the WYSIWYG platforms, and your website comes together, right? And so I would say then, if you needed to do a next step up, WordPress might be applicable to you. But that doesn't necessarily, it isn't true anymore, because things like Wix, right? Wix, Squarespace, and Weebly. Weebly now has it through Square, through their platform, like operating a shopping cart, right? You don't have to obviously, building a shopping cart would be near impossible for all of us, because we're not computer programmers. But you don't even need to move up to something like a WordPress and then install what they call a plugin to run a shopping cart, because these other platforms are giving you the option now to just click a button, and now you have shopping cart functionality. And what shopping cart functionality is, right, you can basically run a store from your website. So what WordPress is WordPress is just another technology. It's not necessarily the what you see is what you get. It's more built on a PHP, and what it does is it's basically like a big database, and there's lots of tools that have been built for it so that you can build a very nice looking website, but it's integrated so that you can, it was originally built as blog software, so that you can have all these blogs. But then you can also create, and those would be considered posts, and that's really what WordPress was started on, as posts. But then there's also things that you can create as pages, and through plugins that you can download. Some are paid, some are free. You can really expand the functionality of your website. And where it gets a little complicated is there's a WordPress.org, and that's basically where you download the software and you go find your own host and upload it. And that's essentially what we have right now with our nativebiz.org website, right? We are running our own host. Our host is called Pressable. It's a little, that's even confusing, because when we got Pressable, they were an independent company, but they have now been bought by Automatic, which owns WordPress. So they've kind of brought it in, but it is still technically an independent thing. So we downloaded like WordPress and uploaded it to their servers. But then there's WordPress.com, and WordPress.com works a lot like these other platforms, Weebly, Wix, and Squarespace, and Google Sites as well, where you're just signing up and now they're giving you a platform. The difference there between WordPress.com and what these other sites are is it looks a lot different from the back end, because you're essentially running the WordPress software and creating your website. And since we're not going into it, I'm not going to talk, because there's all this kind of ecosystem that's been built up around WordPress using blocks. They came up with this new what they call the Gutenberg editor. That's the most recent update. You guys don't need to know all that for this platform, but just know that. But the reason why we even mention WordPress is because WordPress kind of took the world by storm, especially before things like Squarespace and Wix, kind of came of age, and WordPress became the dominant software in website development. So there's more WordPress installations than any other type of software package. However, a lot of these other independent, where everything's kind of self-contained, they have started to kind of eat into that. I'll say, because Lynn mentioned, who would this be best for? I would say is if you're looking, if you're starting out, probably what we're talking about in this website and this website class, Google Sites. Totally free of charge. All you got to do is have a Google account, right? That's the easiest place to start. A great way to get going and start experimenting and learn some basic skills in website development. All the stuff that Lynn's going to talk about what are the pages that you need, how to choose a theme. All those type of things are applicable to all the other sites. So it's really good to start with Google Sites to learn the basic. Then as you move up, if you don't want to get too technical, you start with some of these other platforms, Weebly, Wix, Squarespace. Those are a good next step. You will have to get a little more technical, as you build. There's a lot more options in those platforms, a lot more, not just options and things you can click, but things you can add into the site, right? But that's kind of the next step. If there's going to be much more functionality that you need, or maybe there's a certain type of thing that you want to run. To give you an example, the reason why we're with WordPress is because we run an events calendar, and we've been running this events calendar for many years, and that's a plugin specifically built for WordPress. And at the time, and it may be that they have this functionality now, but at the time, Wix and Squarespace, when we were looking at this, did not have that functionality, right? This was a plugin that you could get to WordPress. And so that's why we went with WordPress, right? That we could, and at the time, even WordPress.com that was around, they didn't allow you to install third-party plugins. They since have changed that. So you can see it's really about determining what your needs are, right? And if you don't know what your needs are, it's probably best to start at the beginning. But you'll start seeing as you build your website, you'll start saying, hey, I would really like my website to do this, or I really need my website to do this for my business, or for my business to be successful. To give you an example, let's say that you do, whatever let's say you do real estate, right? I know it's kind of a different thing in Indian country because a lot of us, live on reses. But if you did you're doing something urban and you're doing real estate, and the company that you do real estate with has a plugin that's only available on WordPress, and you'd say, well, that's why I got to have a WordPress website, because the plugin that I really need is that, right? Very similar to what we did. Whereas if you say, hey, I want a shopping cart, I don't necessarily need to go to WordPress. Doing something on Weebly, Wix, or Squarespace would be fine. And we mentioned Weebly, but I don't know if it's through Weebly, but Square, who owns Weebly, Len just mentioned that Square offers their own store. So even if Weebly doesn't offer the store software, I think you can even migrate your site over into the Square. I don't know what it's called. I think it's like Square Store or something like that, or Square Commerce. You could go there and you could have a shopping cart. So really, that's how you're going to determine, what site that you're going to, what platform you're going to want to build on. So but just blanket recommendation, start with Google Sites, see what else you need and what Google Sites is not providing for you, and then move up from there.
Thank you, Mark. And Tracy, I see your question. So the slides are available there. I believe everyone should be able to see it in your file section down below, lower left. And you should be able to download these slides as a PDF. While we are talking about it, and since we're going to be together over the next several days, I am curious if everyone don't mind kind of putting into the chat box, are you planning on building a site? Is that why you're taking the class? And if you are planning on building a website, what do you plan to use it for? Is it for, your jewelry business? Is it just for, maybe a nonprofit organization that you work for? I would kind of be interested in knowing, kind of the whats and whys. Oh, and Susie, so you have a vacation rental in the mountains. I'm curious as to whether you are going to just rely completely on a website, or if you were going to go through something like Airbnb or VRBO. And I see that Camille is on with us too. Camille Coster, if you see her name over there on the right-hand side, both Camille and I have owned vacation rentals in the past. Neither one of us have a vacation rental right now, but we both are big fans of Airbnb. And so I had my vacation rental posted in both Airbnb and I never remember if it's VRBO or VBRO anyway. I use both.
That's great. VRBO, Vacation Rentals by Owners.
Yeah. Okay. But Airbnb was definitely great. Oh my gosh, I love that platform. And we didn't do a separate website for our vacation rental. I just listed it on Airbnb as well as VRBO. Airbnb definitely got the most traffic out of the two. So, if you're just looking to try to bring people into your vacation rental, I would definitely say that Airbnb is a good possibility. And we're also doing some Airbnb trainings coming up. So, if you are interested in starting an Airbnb business, we have a special program that we're getting ready to launch here soon. I don't have all the details, but you can reach out to me and we'll let you know and make sure that you get invited to that. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So Bonnie, you're building a website for your nonprofit. Lillian, it's coming through a little fast. So I there, Lillian. online shopping. I think you said for maybe your handmade stuff, things are shipping. Something else that I would suggest, like if you are developing handmade products like I do, that there are marketplace platforms like Etsy, which is a great platform to sell handmade items on. In fact, they're the world's largest marketplace for handmade and vintage items. And I have been selling on Etsy myself for a little over a year now. And my organization, so we actually have been doing a class called Etsy Craft Entrepreneurship for several years now. And so I would say, and here's what I say. Yes, I would encourage you to still have a website for your business. And in fact, when we get into mine here in a little bit, you'll see that not only do I have a website, but I have an Etsy store as well. So I'm able to connect those two. But looking at those third-party marketplaces, if you are planning on selling any kind of handmade item, is definitely something to consider. Yeah, Angelica, I'm reading reading yours. Yeah, having trouble keeping a host. Yeah, that's, and that's unfortunate. And that's the, problem that some people run into is, you get a website built and maybe nobody's trained on how to use it. And then it becomes a little bit difficult. But again, that's why, I think that everyone just kind of needs to take a look at, what might change in their business in the future, and just making sure that, as we mentioned before, that you own it. But again, things like Google Sites and these other WYSIWYG platforms, very, very easy to get in there. So it's like, even if you've never went in and edited a website before, it's so easy, that you shouldn't have any kind of problem. Okay. And Tracy, thank you for that comment. Yeah, I've never used eBay. I've sure shopped on there a lot in the past, not so much now, but anyway, okay. Well, thank you guys for sharing that. That helps me. Okay, so let's talk about another important component. When you decide to move forward and start building your website, a big thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to select a domain name. And this is something that you definitely do not want to take lightly. This is a big deal because, the last thing that you want to do is have to go and switch, your domain name. So one of the things that's popped into my head, first of all, which I don't think I have in my notes, I'm going to tell you to keep in mind where your business might be in the future. So for instance, if you have a business, I'm going to say I have a business here in Oklahoma, and, a few years down the road, I'm hoping that maybe I expand my service area and am not only in Oklahoma, but maybe serving, customers in neighboring states like Arkansas and Kansas. One thing I probably would not want to do is have any kind of domain name with the word Oklahoma in it. So, and I see that happen, I have seen it happen. I don't see it a lot, but I have seen it happen that business owners will have some kind of geographic feature to their domain name. And then later on down the road, they're wanting to expand and they end up having to change the domain name because they have, a state name or a town name or something as part of their domain or as part of their business name. So keep that in mind as well. Okay. So whenever you're thinking about selecting a domain name, one thing you want to do is make sure that you're using, if possible, a .com extension. And the reason is because I think, most of us are very familiar with .com extensions. So most of us are very comfortable with that. There's other common options that, such as .org, of course, like IDRS. We're a nonprofit organization, so we use the .org extension. There's also .net. So all of those are perfectly fine. But believe it or not, there are a lot of different extensions that you can get nowadays, and you'll see, because here in a minute, I'm going to actually take you into to Namecheap here, and we're going to search for some different domains. But I mean, there's everything from .xyz to .cafe, .pizza, .me, .tv, more extensions than I ever even thought was possible. And, you know, some of those may be okay depending on what kind of business you have. But I would say that overall, a lot of those kinds of extensions, like .pizza versus .com, that they may come across to potential customers as unworthy, untrustworthy, or very unprofessional. So even though it might be like, oh, well, that would be a super cute extension to have for my business, you know, it may not be the best idea depending on, you know, what kind of business and product and services that you're offering. So when possible, use a .com extension. Let me see, I don't have this in my notes either. Something else that I want to suggest is that when you are selecting a domain name, like let's say the .com extension is available. Well, if the .net extension is also available, you might consider getting both. And the reason I say that is because, you know, like you don't want someone, like if you have the .com extension and someone else comes in and gets the .net extension, then there's a possibility people could confuse your business. You know what I mean? Like it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing for you. So whenever I'm buying domain names, I usually try to purchase the .org, the .net, and the .com if I can. So your domain name, just make sure that you're keeping it pretty simple. No one likes to try to type in a huge long domain name. It's going to be hard for people to remember, and remember that your domain name is actually kind of an extension of your brand. So use it as a branding tool for your business. So make sure it's not super hard for people to remember or spell or be able to pronounce. So typically a domain name that is 6 to 14 characters in length, you know, no more than 14 would be best. And what's the place here? Okay, yeah. So short, easy to spell, simple to remember. Make sure that you're avoiding things like hyphens, underscores, numbers. You know, I would say it just depends, but typically if you can avoid hyphens, numbers, double letters. So, you know, for instance, having like two B's that are right next to each other. Just wanting to make sure that it's easy for people to spell and easy for people to remember. And make sure also that you're staying unique and specific to your brand. You know, it's really hard to try to brainstorm a name for your business, but then whenever you're trying to go out and get that domain name, it can also be really frustrating, because let me tell you, to find that perfect domain name has just become harder and harder now. But just making sure that you're choosing that domain name that is clear and concise, while also at the same time remaining unique and true to your business. Making sure that, you know, you might consider adding some keywords to your domain name. And you don't want to go overboard here, but I think the best thing for me to do is kind of share an example. And I don't know if this was a good thing to do for my husband's business or not, but my husband has the lawn and landscaping business. And so whenever he was trying to do his domain name, well, the domain name for he wanted to use his business name, right? Well, nothing was available. And he's like, what am I going to do? Because the name of his business was Four Seasons. Well, as you can imagine, like every domain name that you could imagine with Four Seasons in it was taken. And so one of the things that we did was we thought, well, most of the customers he's, really trying to attract are in the Tulsa area. And so what he did is ended up using the domain name like Tulsa Lawn and Landscaping. And so that was kind of because that's the geographical area he's going to serve. Now, again, like I said a minute ago, if you're looking to expand out of that area, doing something like that may be good. And unfortunately, that's the situation he's finding himself in because we just moved back home to where our tribe is located. So we're not serving. He's not wanting to serve the Tulsa area anymore. Now he's wanting to, serve this area. And so we're going to end up having to get a totally new domain name because of that. So just keep that in mind. And there are tools out there, like if you're wanting to know, what kind of keywords are people looking for whenever they're looking for my type of business, there's tools out there online that can easily help you do that. So with that, I want to share my screen and let's just go into Namecheap here. Alyssa, you may. Yeah, I'm here. What?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one comment of things that people should not do when doing a domain name. I heard this story about this guy named Pat Flynn, and if you guys may know Pat Flynn, he does a lot of passive income stuff. But when he first started his website, he was doing training to get people to do for an architectural exam, and he used the name of the architectural exam, which was LEED, if you guys have ever seen a LEED building. And he said like the LEED Exam Academy or something like that. Well, that LEED is copywritten. So always be careful because what happened is they had a lawyer contact him and said, your domain name is copywritten or it's trademarked of LEED. You can't use it. We'll sue you and to take it back over. And so he was getting all these sales. And so he had to change his domain overnight. So that's also another thing. You don't want to put somebody else's, what they call intellectual property, inside your domain. So make sure that if you're doing that, you don't do that. So.
Yeah. And I was actually a little concerned about that. Like whenever whenever he named his business Four Seasons, I was like, I don't know if we're going to get in trouble for using that name, but you made a very good point. Okay. So
just real quick before you get started, Lynn, Lorna had her hand raised. I'm just going to go ahead and give her mic access real quick.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you for catching that.
She should have mic access.
And it's Lorna, you say?
Yes.
So Lorna, hi, did you have a question or a comment?
If you're unable to use your mic, you could type it in the chat box. You can either send a direct message to myself or you could put it in the group chat.
Yeah, because I see her that you gave her the access, but it looks like her mic is grayed out for some reason. I don't know if she's on mute.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. And Lorna, you can either type your question into the chat, and then Mark, whenever you see it come through, you can stop me and we'll get her question answered. Okay, so when you go to buy a domain for your website, there are tons, just dozens and dozens of places where you can do this. And so remember at the beginning of the class, I said, well, if you want to use Google Sites or you want to use Weebly or Wix and you want to buy your domain through them, you certainly can do that. Or you can purchase your domain from another company and then you just redirect it. And so that's what I do. And I always use Namecheap. I like Namecheap. I used to use GoDaddy, but I have to tell you that GoDaddy was kind of sneaky in making me think that I needed to buy more than what I really needed to. And so that's kind of why I switched to Namecheap, because they don't try to upsell you quite as much as some of the others. But So here is Namecheap, and all you have to do is, if you think you have a domain in mind, all you need to do is type it. And so I would actually I think this would be kind of fun. Does someone have a domain name that they would like for me to look up? And I'm not really, let me see if I can, okay, I'm able to. Yes, Camille GoDaddy is sneaky. Yeah, so if someone has a domain name you would like for me to search for, if you could just type it into the chat. I've got the chat box open, so I think I can see that, and we'll just use it as an example. Okay, tribalofwateralliance.com. Well, let's just see. Spell it right. Hopefully I got it spelled right. So you just type the name in there and then you click search. And then, so here is, look, it's available. The .com is available. Again, let me make sure I got this. You want to make sure I spelled it right. So that is available. The .net is available. So it looks like the .org is not available. But you certainly could go in and buy the .com. Now, here's also what I was talking about. Remember all the different extensions. So there's XYZ, .bio, .io, .online, .tech, .live. I mean, the list is just, look at that, explore 400 plus more additional extensions. I mean, it's just the number of extensions that are out there ridiculous. And again, it might be okay for a certain type of business, you know, like the .health. If it was a doctor and he wanted, you know, the URL, like, you know, drgreg.health, I mean, maybe that would be okay. But typically trying to stick with the .com, the .net, or the .org is preferable. Let me see. Was there any others that someone wanted me to look at while I'm here?
Lynn, so I just put like my name in the box, Mark Thompson. You know,
okay.
say, hey, you know, you have somebody that maybe you're an artist or you're, you know, you do a service business, and so you just want to search under your name and see what that pulls up.
Let's just see. I'm going to be actually disappointed, Mark, if you have not bought Mark Thompson.
No, I did not. I think it went before I was probably even born. That's a joke, but.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I tried to buy LynnWilson.com. It's been gone for years. So is LynnWilson.net. So actually what I did end up buying, and I don't use it as for a website, I use it as my personal email address. I actually bought the extension lynnwilson.me. So I do have one with those crazy extensions, but I don't have a website. I just use it because I wanted in my own personal email. And so my email is lynn@lynnwilson.me.
You know, like one thing I'm thinking as I'm looking at this, I don't know if my last two letters come up, but one of the things is if, you know, with any of these domain names, it is kind of up to you to market, right? And, you know, we're going to suggest you put your domain name right on your business cards. If you still use business cards, on the bottom of your email, maybe even get a personalized email. Like, so if we got markthompson.com, I should be mark at markthompson.com. But one of the things I've seen some people do is if their last initials, so like I see there in the second one down, it says markthompson.gg. But maybe that your last name is Greg and it's Gregg. What you might do is get your name. I'll say like my name is Mark Gregg. You could put Mark GRE, and then you use .gg as the last two initials. I've seen people kind of do that. That's, you know, that's kind of a, you know, kind of a unique way, you know, to do it. You know, I don't know.
And I think especially if you're doing something that's just personal, you know, if it's not necessarily for a business that doing something like that for your personal use is totally fine.
Yeah, because if you want people to find you, that does make it a lot more difficult.
Right. And if you find a URL that is taken, sometimes you can make an offer on that and try to buy that domain from the person. And it looks like, so this, I was looking because sometimes you can find the information about who actually owns the domain. Although a lot of times now I think people are getting like that protection that keeps it private so people can't figure out who owns the domain. Okay, so any questions about the domain stuff that we just covered? I'm going to see if I can quit sharing and get out of here. Hopefully I don't exit the webinar trying to do this. Currently sharing.
Lynn, can I just throw one more?
Yeah,
resource?
talk away while I'm trying to get back into the webinar.
So I'm just going to share one of the ones that I use. There's a million that are out there, right? So Lynn uses Namecheap. The one I just threw in there is instant domain search, and that's just the one that I always use when I'm doing when I'm teaching a web class. That it's like it's just another, just another platform that you can use. That you put your name, and you can, like a lot of times I'm not even buying the names through there. What I'm doing is I'm doing that more to search. And so, so then I could see, okay, well, Mark Thompson's taken, but all these others are available. And one of the nice things that this site does is it also gives you some suggestions. So so I know you guys can't see this, but I've searched for Mark Thompson, and it also gives me suggestions like, okay, maybe do Mark Thompson online or my Mark Thompson. And that I may not necessarily take that suggestion, but I might think that might spark some idea that I may have to weigh, okay, instead of doing Mark Thompson online, what if I do Mark Thompson, Mark Thompson real estate or something like that? I use something different. So be thinking, so that's just a site that I like to use. Just wanted to throw it out as you were switching. Okay, I think it's starting back up. Oh, Lynn, if you're trying to talk, I apologize. You're muted. Just wanted to let you know that. Don't know if you're talking.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Okay. No wonder nobody was answering me.
Yes, exactly. And I didn't know. I was sitting here. I was like, oh, am I supposed to keep talking? I've run out of things. So apologize about that.
No. Okay. So here in a minute, we're going to dive into the different key pages that every website should have. So whether you're building your website on Google Sites or Wix or WordPress, whatever, there's definitely 4 pages that everyone needs to have. But instead of switching back to the slides and then try to go back to this, I'm just going to stay here. But one thing I was going to talk to everyone about is organizing your website assets. And now I wish I could kind of share this slide, but it's too much trouble to try to go back and forth. Whenever you're developing a website, you really do want to make sure that that you're organizing them in a file in your computer or Google Drive or something. And what I like to do is create whenever I'm developing a website. Now, obviously, if you're just doing 4 pages, you don't really need to do this. But let's say you were going to do a little bit more in-depth website. Maybe your website is going to have 15, 20, 25 pages to it. One thing you might want to do is create a site map. And you can just Google that, like Google, a website site map. Because I like to write it all down on paper and be like, okay, well, here's my main tabs. I'm going to have home, about me, products and services, and then a contact page. But then under products and services, I may have several different types of products, and I want all them to have their own page. So whenever you're developing the content for your site, just make sure you're setting up a folder on your computer, or again, in Google Drive or wherever it is you like to keep that stuff, and just really keep everything organized in folders by the page. Don't just have one folder for your website and you're dumping all of this information for all these different pages. What I would suggest is you have one made folder for your website, and then within that have subfolders, like one for your homepage, one for your About Me page. So that way, as you're building your website, you're able to organize that content and put them in there. Because this is honestly, building a website, the hardest part of it is developing the content. It's not putting it in the platform. So actually creating the website and the platform is probably one of the easiest things. It's, writing all of this text, gathering all the pictures that you're going to need for your website. That's the hardest part. So let's get into that. We don't have much time left, so I'm probably just going to be able to cover the homepage today, and then tomorrow we'll pick up about the rest. So one of the key pages that you definitely want to have for your website is the homepage. And there are certain things that you want your homepage to have, certain characteristics, or I'm trying to think of exactly the right word. But one of those is that when people go to the homepage of your website, they need to be able to tell right away kind of what your business is about. And I have been to several websites where I'm on the homepage and I'm like, if you asked me okay, what kind of business is this? I would not be able to tell you, because I'm like, I have no idea. Looking at their homepage, I have no idea what this business is about. So, if you can make sure that whether it's the title that you're using, like up here, I'm using Cherokee Garden. I have a little bit of text here. So obviously, if you go to my website, you can tell that I'm doing something around gardening. Another important element of your homepage that I think is good for people to have is a tagline. And my tagline is authentically Cherokee grown and made. Some other important components that you will see are like my logo, which is up here in the corner. And I have relevant images that pertain to my business. So having those key components on your homepage is good. Something else on the homepage, and I'm going to put together a handout that because I don't know that it really, I tend to not put a lot of information on my slides like some people do. So not necessarily having my slides is not necessarily going to help you. So I have actually a handout that I will make sure and share with everyone. And sorry, I didn't think about uploading it before now. But having a call to action on your homepage. And so this is my call to action, that if people will click here and sign up, this would actually be signing up for my email list, that they'll be entered in my monthly corn bead necklace giveaway. I have my contact information, and I have a social media link here. Let me actually go, because we're in the back end of Google's site. So let me go to view the published site, so I'm not confusing you with all of that. Okay, so got my tagline. I've got a little bit of information about my business here. I have a call to action, which you want to have almost on every page within your website, right? Because that's the reason it exists. You're trying to get customers to buy something from you. So I have my call to action button there. I have images that are relevant to my business, and I have another call to action here. And the reason why I have this down here is because just because someone goes and shops from my store doesn't necessarily mean or maybe they don't actually purchase from me. Maybe they're just going to look around in my store. And in that case, I'm not capturing that visitor's information. And so that's why I would add something like this, is even if they don't buy something from my store, if I could get them to sign up for my monthly giveaway, then I've captured their information, even though they may not be a customer right at that moment. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that I've done here. Now, Google Sites, like I said, it doesn't have a whole lot of bells and whistles. And so, like, for instance, Google Sites does not have a shopping cart. So if you're looking for something with a shopping cart feature, you would be like, oh, Google Sites isn't going to work for me. But here's what I did. I find these little workarounds, and these are some of the things that I'm going to teach you in this class.
Lynn,
Yes.
if I could just interrupt you, some of the folks in the chat box are asking what they should be seeing now, because they're seeing on screen the WYSIWYG slide.
Oh no, they should be seeing my website.
Oh, okay. So yeah, because right now that's all.
Okay, hold on. Let me try to relaunch a new share here.
Lynn, you don't have to stop sharing it. You just have to click forward on the slides.
Oh, but I'm not trying to go to the slides. I'm trying to go to the internet. So like right now, it should be showing my website. It's called Cherokee Garden.
It does. Yes, it shows the sites page.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry about that, guys. So that means everything I just said, y'all are like, I have no idea what she's talking about. So I'll just briefly, this is my homepage. On your homepage, there are certain elements that you want to make sure that you have. I think it's always good to have some kind of tagline for your business. This is just for branding purposes, and you can use it, as part of your marketing. So my tagline for my business is authentically Cherokee grown and made. I have a little bit of text here about my business. It just briefly, like in one paragraph, explains what my business does. I have some relevant images. So when you go to my homepage on my, for my business, then that, okay, well, Lynn's obviously doing something that has to do with gardening. And so two other components that I have here is a call to action. So as I mentioned, one of, the main thing that we want to do with our website is we're wanting to drive customers to purchase something from us. And so we want to make sure that on every page, we'll get to the other pages later, that we're just providing that way for customers to get to our stores. As I was saying, in Google Sites, Google Sites does not have a store feature. So there is no shopping cart that you can use in Google Sites. But there are workarounds to this, and this is what I want to explain. So even though I have products that I want to sell, Google Sites doesn't have a store I could set up. But what I did, because I actually sell my products on Etsy, I was able to just put a link in my Google website. And when people click that, did you see how seamlessly that just takes them right over to my Etsy store? And so here's where I sell all of my products. So if you need that store feature, even though Google Sites doesn't have it, just know that if you're using like a marketplace platform like Etsy, you can just, create a button that links to wherever it is that you're wanting people to actually make the purchase. I have another call to action here. So I was saying that, someone might visit my store, but if they don't purchase from me, I'm never going to know it, right? I mean, I'll never have a way of capturing that person's information unless they make a purchase. So that's why I will also add something like to the homepage that I want to encourage people to give me their information. And so I have this button down here. I know some of this may be small for some of you guys, but it says sign up for my monthly corn bead necklace giveaway. And so I want people to click that, sign up. Let me see where I'm linking this to. So I just have this link to a Google form. And so people can fill this out. And then every month, when I do my giveaway, I can select a winner. But this is a great way for me to capture that person's information, even if they never make a sale from me right then. So then I can do also like email marketing campaigns to them or whatever, which of course I will say, I know that you have to have permission from people, you know, to use something like MailChimp or Constant Contact. But, you know, that's where on something like that, I would just have a place in your form that where they can check like, yes, I would like to receive your monthly newsletter or whatever, so that you have their permission. Okay. So that's the homepage element, and it's 2:25. So I'm going to stop there. What we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to talk about the other 3 key pages that everyone needs for a website, regardless of what platform you're using to build it in. And we'll talk about the key elements that are there for those. And then we'll start moving into like the technical aspect, like actually getting into, you know, how to create a Google site and how I'm creating assets like this customized banner. And I'm creating other assets that are not necessarily part of the toolkit that Google Sites gives you. But like I said, I have figured out little workarounds because, for instance, they don't have social. Well, actually, they do have social links now. That's kind of new since I built this, because I actually created this myself. But yeah, we'll start getting into a lot of fun stuff. One of the things we're going to do is, like I said, you know, learn how to make like a logo, learn how to make the favicon for your website, and do some of this cool graphic design stuff that really is going to allow you to give your personal touch to any website that you build. So I'm going to stop there and see if anyone has any questions or comments. And otherwise, we are wrapped up for today. And then I will see everyone back at the same time, same place tomorrow. Oh, thank you. Oyster, she has a evaluation here that she would like everyone to complete. And that would be most appreciated if everyone could take just a second to complete the evaluation for this first session.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and thank you, Mark, for joining us today and doing today's webinar. We greatly appreciate it. My slides are not up at the moment, so please bear with me as I'll just talk through the ending. I went ahead and launched the survey. If you could just please let us know how we did, that would be greatly appreciated. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. It will be tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. EST. Feel free to access this and any other recorded webinars online on our website at www.nativelearningcenter.com. We have a Cathedra webinars tab and a recorded webinars section. You can click any one of the webinars that we have done for the past 18 months. Feel free to view them and share them with your friends and colleagues. Check out our upcoming events as well on our social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. We even have a podcast titled Hope Thinga. You can find that on Simplecast, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Once again, I want to thank all of our participants for joining us today, and have a wonderful day.
Dawn, I think if you see like the web links box down there, Underneath that, you should see it's number 1. It says today's survey. So you should be able to click that and launch the survey.
I just put the link in the chat box if that makes
Okay,
it
thank
easier.
you.
And I'll relaunch it one more time.
Awista, I was just going to suggest that I know Don and Mark are conversing a lot here, just wrapping up, and that maybe they could be given access to unmute so they could actually talk instead of trying to type everything through chat.
I think what I was talking to was Karen, because Karen had written a bigger post there on using DreamHost. So I was just writing to Karen about the like using DreamHost, because IDRS, we used to use DreamHost, and DreamHost, one of the cool things about DreamHost is that they do offer a nonprofit discount. So if anybody is from a nonprofit, DreamHost, a nonprofit discount, they'll actually give you like a free hosting account for you to build a website for your nonprofit on. Problem with them is that you're going to be having to use a more technical platform like a WordPress. So if you're not tech savvy, that may not be the best thing to start out with, right? So just wanted to mention that, but and put that out there, because I agree with her that DreamHost is a great hosting platform if you wanted to move up to something like WordPress.